This is the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra and it's been out for about a month now. So after 30 days and all of the hype finally dying down around it, is this phone still worth it? Let's find out, because to me, this might be the smartphone of the year and the Android that finally convinces a lot of Apple users, including me, to switch over completely. At initial glance, it looks very similar to last year's Galaxy S23 Ultra, but there are a ton of physical differences on the exterior, which have actually made the S24 Ultra an absolute joy to use. Now, this is probably the best feeling phone that I've ever held in my hands ever. Now, I know that's a difficult feeling to get across on camera, but the Galaxy S24 Ultra is the most premium feeling phone that I've ever had the opportunity to hold. And yes, they took some inspiration from the iPhone by changing their exterior material to titanium, which is the railings across, and that's really made the phone feel a lot more solid. This is obviously the gray or white platinum titanium, whatever you want to call it, version of the phone, and it's easily my favorite of the bunch released this year. The other major difference between last year's model and this year's model is the displays. The Galaxy S24 Ultra easily has the best display of any smartphone ever. I'm not kidding. And for you display geeks out there who want exact numbers, this phone gets ridiculously bright. The display goes up all the way to 2600 nits. And if you're wondering what the S23 Ultra was at last year, it was at around 1750 nits. So it's almost a 1000 nit increase over last year. That's a ridiculously bright display. Samsung has also really worked on their anti-reflective coating on this smartphone. My key light is blasting directly at me right now, and you'll notice there's very little reflection on it, which is just incredible because you're not gonna see that same result on every single smartphone that you use. As you can see, the S23 Ultra is way more reflective under this light. So Samsung has really figured out whatever they've done to make the S24 Ultra a lot less reflective under direct light, which is awesome and makes it way more usable along with that brighter display whenever you're outdoors. Another thing that Samsung unveiled at Galaxy Unpacked that I feel like not a lot of people on YouTube or anywhere else are talking about is the added support on the S24 Ultra. So Samsung has promised 7 years worth of updates on the S24 Ultra, which is up from last year's S23 Ultra, where they only offered 4 years, meaning that this phone is going to continue to receive updates all the way to 2030. And that really shows you how much Samsung believes in the S24 Ultra as a future-proof phone. And that's just awesome to me because the life cycle for smartphones is getting a lot shorter because we're seeing a lot less innovation in this space. So year after year, phones are actually starting to look more similar to last year's model, meaning that people are not upgrading as often. So it's actually a real class act by Samsung to offer such longevity behind their phones and really stand behind their products, meaning that even if you purchase this today, it's still gonna work fine all the way up until 2030. Hopefully. Now let's dive into Galaxy AI, because there was a lot of talk and a lot of hype this year around Galaxy Unpacked and all the AI features that Samsung wanted to drop on the S24 Ultra. Now, I'll be honest, I don't use a lot of them on a day-to-day basis, such as live translate or assistance during texting in different languages. It's not really a problem that I encountered in my day-to-day life because I'm in a place where everyone pretty much speaks English, but I can definitely see this being very useful while traveling, which I plan to do soon, so I will be testing that out in the field. But features from AI that I do use and I genuinely find useful are mostly related to the photo side. So now using Galaxy AI, you're able to remove small objects within photos quite easily or resize any subject within a photo if you want. I mostly just use the remove tool because that saves me an extra step from having to take my photos into Photoshop. There's also a generative expand, and I know Adobe is not going to be happy about me calling it that, but essentially it lets you crop your photos and expand your frame, and it'll use AI to fill whatever's missing. Again, a feature that I use really often in Photoshop, and is awesome that it's built right into the phone, which allows me to use it on the go. And finally, the last thing that I use with Galaxy AI in the photo department is blurring the background. You can add blur to any photo later on of a portrait or a person if you want, and you can adjust the depth of field and how much blur you want to add, which I think is awesome. And it does a really, really clean job, better than the iPhone, of blurring out the edges from your subject. But the most impressive Galaxy AI feature that Samsung rolled out in partnership with Google this year is called Circle to Search by Google, and I think this is genuinely a behavior changing feature. Rarely do we get a new feature on a smartphone that changes the way that we use it, and Circle to Search by Google is definitely one of those features. If you haven't seen it, you definitely need to check it out for yourself because it's pretty crazy. You can pretty much circle anything on your screen. Everything is fair game, including videos, and I find myself using this a lot when scrolling Instagram or TikTok. I'll see an object or something that I'm interested in and I want to know what that is or where it's from, and I'll use Circle to Search to circle that exact item, and generally I can find it pretty quickly. This feature will be rolling out to other Google phones, so I believe it's just going to come out with the Google Pixel 8 Pro and the S24 Ultra this year, but it'll roll out to more higher end flagship phones as it becomes more advanced. That's my assumption anyways. Next up, let's talk about the cameras on the S24 Ultra because they were definitely a point of contention and controversy this year. Now, the majority of the camera stack has stayed unchanged. You're gonna get the exact same cameras that you got on the S23 Ultra, with the exception of the telephoto lens. Now, last year's S23 Ultra had a 10x zoom lens. This year we're getting a 5x lens, so some people are definitely seeing that as a downgrade. However, we did get a megapixel bump all the way up to 50 megapixels, meaning that the 5x images out of this phone this year are going to be way more usable than last year's 10x. And also, to me, 5x is just a way more usable focal length. I will say this year, Apple has also taken that same cue with their iPhone 15 Pro Max. They've gone with the 5x lens for their telephoto lens. So along with that 5x lens and this titanium exoskeleton, I feel like that smartphone manufacturers have really figured out the secret sauce and are starting to dial in and basically copy each other, which I know a lot of people get frustrated about, but I think it's actually a good thing, because if some company has figured out what really works and is the best way to make a smartphone, I actually think everybody should just go ahead and copy that. So hopefully the next Pixel will also come out with a titanium exoskeleton. The social media quality and experience has always been better on iPhones, which is why a lot of us still carry an iPhone even if we're using an Android phone like the S24 Ultra. However, this year Samsung has worked with third-party manufacturers and third-party developers like Instagram and Snapchat to make the social media experience the same. So unfortunately, TikTok is not on that list, but the S24 Ultra experience on Instagram this year has been exactly the same as my iPhone. Genuinely, in the past, I wouldn't really be that motivated to post from my Android, but this year I haven't had any issues, and literally the videos look exactly the same on both phones, which is a great sign to see. And hopefully TikTok will be next up on that list because most of us are using our phones for social media. The S24 Ultra is a battery monster. It literally runs all day without any problem. It has a 5,000 milliamp battery, and if you've seen my day in the life video, which I'll link somewhere here in this video, I finished my day with about 40% battery left still with heavy usage. So some people are actually calling this the 2-day battery phone. Now, I wouldn't push it that far, but I think you could easily make it a day and a half with this on a single charge without any issues. So the ultimate question that we're all here for, should you buy this phone now that it's been out for 30 days and people have had the opportunity to go ahead and test it? What I'll say is that if you're not a slave to the Apple ecosystem, and if it's not essential to your workflow and you're already on Android, this is the absolute best smartphone that you can buy in 2024. As a standalone phone, taking away the ecosystems and everything, I think this is probably the greatest smartphone ever made. So if you need to buy a smartphone in 2024 and you got some money burning a hole in your pocket and you need a phone today, I think the S24 Ultra is the only choice, as MKBHD put it. It's gonna get 7 years of support, so it'll be even good in 2030. But yeah, that's my review of the Galaxy S24 Ultra after using it for 30 days. Genuinely one of my favorite phones of all time. But that's it for this video. I'll see you guys in the next one, and until then, keep creating.